Wonder if you guys can hear it okay. Let's see. Can you guys hear my background music? I wonder if y'all can hear the background music. I wonder if our voices will carry over the music, or do I need to turn it off? That's what I'm wondering. I love it. I was getting ready with this music on. And let's see. Oh, comments. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We got some special requests, some topics that we're going to talk about today. And it's going to help people with how they, their dealings at home, on the home front. We're also going to tell how we're able to maintain our self-care and a high frequency. Let's see. I would love to know if you guys you can hear over the music, or maybe I can turn it on my other YouTube channel and see. Maybe I can hear it for myself. Sorry for the delay. I know it's really, really early on the West Coast where the girls are, so they are probably, still getting, I guess, getting out of bed, getting the sleep out of their eyes, the eye crusties. There's Alexis. Hey.
Hey, good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I'm hearing music. Are you playing music?
I am. Is it loud?
A little bit, but only because I've got headphones on.
Let me see if I can turn it down. They told me that I can do background music, so let's see how.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Look at you learning all the features every week.
Oh, I found it. Oh yeah, it was up to 50. We don't have to keep it, but I think that it was good just for the introduction, right?
I love it.
You look so good in blue.
Thank you.
Yeah. How do you feel? You look refreshed.
I feel refreshed. Yeah. Good. How do you feel?
I feel really good. I'm just going along with everything that I've been doing the past few days, which is a lot of meditating with the blue ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just I've been asking for a lot of things, and they have been like revelations.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been coming to understand a lot more over the past few days.
Wow.
It's funny when you just ask. If you just ask, a lot of people don't recognize that we can do that and then listen out for the answer. Right?
Yeah, I've had a couple moments this week where it's been like, should I do that? Should I not do that? And my human self does the wavering and the thinking about it. And then it's just like, why aren't I asking? And I know why. Part of it was because I had this belief that said I needed to be in the purest state to ask, and that was putting pressure on myself because I knew in those moments I wasn't in my purest self, and it felt like it was going to take too far to get there. So
Okay.
I was intentionally not seeking help because it was a moment of not feeling worthy.
Oh,
Isn't that interesting?
yeah,
And
I
then it's
usually
even
go through that.
and both instances when I was asking, it was like a should I or shouldn't I? I was preparing myself to get clear to ask the question, and my body leaned before I even asked the question because it was like, "We're trying to tell you."
Yeah. See, they know before we recognize what we're trying to formulate in words.
It goes faster with energy.
Yeah, so much more. I love that about energy, you know. Once you tap in, you can always um, be on like the fast lane, the fast track to what they're sending out, what our guides are sending, our
Yeah,
higher selves.
right.
I felt like I was tapped into the higher version of myself a lot these past few days.
That has been my focus this week, and that's why I've been absent from the text, is that
Yeah,
it was a week of aligning with myself
yeah,
in ways that were very new and exciting for me.
good.
And not even like the visuals that we're used to of calling stuff from above. I
Yeah,
flipped it around and I was going from the heart and pulling it out from the heart. Like it's already within me. There is not something external I need to lean to. And that visual for me was what I needed in this step of my process.
a nice reservoir.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's so amazing, so beautiful. That's what I think our viewers would be interested in is learning a little bit more about how we get tapped in. I have two special requests, really three.
Wonderful. When
Yeah,
Kay
really
gets
three.
on. When Kay gets
Yeah,
on, right?
one,
I'm
yeah,
checking my messages to see if she's touched
yeah.
base.
Okay, thanks.
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
As we know, this is all divine timing. People
Yeah.
watching this might be frustrated or triggered that we have a friend who knows that it's 7:30 and isn't here on 7:30, and we're nice and casual about it because we know it's completely different, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to get here at 7. It was 7:33 by the time I was ready, and
Yeah.
my computer froze, and I laughed because it was like, "Okay, I'm not ready yet."
Yeah, there she
There she
is.
is. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Or
Good.
die.
How are you? Good morning.
Good.
Good morning.
I always feel like my camera is so close, but I'm sitting at my computer. If
Yeah.
I move back, I'll be away from
Sure.
the desk
No,
and
it's the
away from
same.
the controls.
How's that,
Mine's
Joy?
on my phone. So,
Okay.
and I'm
It
gonna
works
get
from the phone.
cozy.
I
Cool,
love
I didn't
it.
know that.
You're cozy.
I'm in my pajamas and my
Yeah.
Be Kind or Die shirt.
Well, that makes everybody comfortable. That's really great.
Does it say Jay James?
Yes.
Who's that? Is that a band?
A very skinny singer. Yeah.
Oh.
It's a band that we went to see. Well, we didn't go to see that band, but we went to see another one, and that band opened. So,
Oh.
and I really liked his vibe. He was like
Oh.
super positive, very, very fun to listen to. So I got a shirt that says "Be Kind or Die."
Is this the concert you just went to a couple weeks ago?
No, that was somebody named Seth Guerin, and he also had a shirt, but I didn't get one for me. I bought one for my friend.
Yeah.
And it was his face with his hair that was super cool. Yeah, and she got a purple one. So sometimes I get show shirts and sometimes I didn't. And she was wearing one that said Blues Traveler because we had been to a concert
Yeah.
a couple before the pandemic
Yeah.
at this place in the Neptune. And they have a song that they play that I love called Hook. And so she's like, I wore this shirt in your honor. And I was like, thank you very much. Because I could remember being at that concert and bouncing up and down and making this letter H so that they would play the song Hook. And I think I did it for like, I don't know, felt like forever. But they
Yeah.
did. They played Hook as an encore. I was like, yes.
Oh,
But yeah, show shirt. Do you
Cool.
guys get show shirts?
I don't really have any. No, I don't have none.
Oh.
I haven't been to a whole lot of concerts either, though.
Yeah.
Just a handful.
I've been to a lot, but I used to work in the industry, so
Oh, yeah.
so it's fun
Yeah.
to go see live music because it's
Mhm.
to me it's just it's there's a lot of
Mhm.
energy there. It's very fun.
I love going to see live music. I've been to, like, jazz clubs and things like that where they're
Oh
playing.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. The music just, like, being
yeah,
in there with it, it's a
yeah.
whole other feel.
It is. It's so that's such a gift. People who play jazz are like talk about knowing music and understanding frequencies and
Yeah.
oh wow, yeah. I
Speaking
admire
of
people who
music,
Yeah.
it
play
just occurred
jazz.
to me, the thought came in that if we have music in the background, then when we're trying to upload clips to platforms, it might get flagged.
Oh. Oh, this is your I'll turn it off even
Okay.
for like closed captioning, but I don't think it'll get flagged because it's free music on this
Oh,
app.
nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
but
Okay.
it's off now though.
Okay.
Let me as a matter of fact, I turned it all the way down, but I better turn it off just in case the AI still picks it up when
Yeah.
it's trying to do captioning.
Do you remember that video of us with Kay on vacation got flagged? And then I got another video that got flagged, and it
Mhm.
was me giving a meditation with the video being the moon and the waves at the beach. You
Yeah.
remember that video I have? That got flagged for potentially copyright material.
Yeah,
But
one
it's
Right.
not.
that
Huh.
happened on my Facebook, the one where we did an event and I was the second week.
Oh,
Hmm.
Yeah, and I'm like, "What music are you hearing?" And I kept disputing it. They gave me
yeah.
the time stamp and everything. I'm like, "There's no music there. It's just our
I wonder
voices."
why.
Interesting.
Our voices are music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see. How did I hope I turned it off. I don't know if I
Hmm.
took it.
It'll be good when we clip it because we're not clipping it with the tags from this recording.
Yeah.
Or maybe I am. Meh. It'll
AJ,
work the
you
way it's
know
meant
what
to.
I wanted to tell our viewers, and I didn't get a chance to that time when you did your when you read your what you read at the I guess at the improv
Mhm.
and that guy, his rendition or
Oh,
summary of
uh-huh. His
your
song?
story and his
Mhm.
song was so amazing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was.
Yeah, and I was like,
Yeah.
I did I almost wished that we could have added that to one of our clips, but it was a whole separate video, and I know it was probably personal, but how did that make you feel when he did that?
I was amazed because I'd seen him do it a couple of times,
Yeah.
and there doesn't seem to be a set, like, riff or chord that he starts with. He
Mhm.
really honors the mood and the energy of what the person's story was. So the
Yeah.
person's story, both of the stories before mine that night at that voice box event were very comical. And so
Mm.
I got up and I closed the set and I said, "Okay, for context, mine is a very different mood. So prepare yourself." And
Yeah.
he honored that with the songs. Their songs were very comical. And then he took it to the level of matching what I presented. And I thought that was really cool. And I even thought about messaging him because he's a friend of mine and
Mhm.
asking for permission to post it
Yeah.
and do kind of a compilation as you're suggesting. And then it didn't feel right.
Okay.
So that's why I let it be.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got a chance to hear it because it was really nice.
Thank you, and I
He's
wanted to tell you
brilliant,
about
huh?
that your feedback of being present in the words
Uh-huh.
completely affected and opened a door of allowance while I was reading it because I was mindful, that we've received advice and the responsibility that we have that if we're gonna be going dark and low frequency, that we shouldn't be leaving people there. Right? We
Mhm.
should be bringing them back up. And
Yeah.
when I originally wrote that, it did stay at the lower frequency, and then I modified it to have a little upswing.
Yeah.
And I was still kind of humanly concerned that it was too dark.
Mm.
And so part of my desire for delivery was more of like a detached, like, let
Mhm.
me tell you about this thing that happened, but everything's good now.
Yes.
And I didn't do that. And so people were in tears. There was one moment where I said something and it was like a bit of anger text that I had written in the thing, and I
Yeah.
could see like spit flying out of my mouth kind of a thing. I was like fully in it,
Yeah.
and it connected. I had people thanking me afterward and coming up, and people that I wouldn't expect to be thanking me just based on, who they are,
Mhm.
and rules that I had said of who this would affect.
Mhm.
And so it was really open and
Yeah.
connecting. It was great.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's when you put emotion behind words, it gives it
Mhm.
fuel for other people to feel it,
Mhm.
Yeah.
And when you're feeling those emotions, it just adds this, I don't know, it's just a beautiful layer, that you can understand it better. And you
Yeah.
can, like when I listened to you telling it, it was so beautiful because you could be there with you. When you shared the emotion, you could be in those moments, and it was like being inside of your brain as you're turning the gears, as it
Hmm.
could be, of
Yeah.
how you're thinking about those moments. It was beautiful.
Thank
Mhm.
you. And it was great because people did stay in a little bit of a somber space after. I didn't bring them all the way up, especially not to the humor that they were in previously.
Mhm.
And what I think it did was it actually unlocked a door for a couple of people, them sitting in that space and having the permission to just contemplate it. And then the beautiful thing is I was the last scheduled speaker, and then a open mic speaker came up and did tell a funny story. So, the event as a whole did what it was supposed to do, and I played my
Mhm.
role, and I played my role authentically rather than trying to control the outcome of the entire event.
Mm. I love that. Authentic.
Yep,
Can't go
authentic.
wrong with that, right?
I wanted to
Kind of,
ask you,
yeah.
and KU especially because you mentioned it, the emotion behind the words. So you've mentioned that you, like some of our other friends, can feel the emotions of particular words that people use in texts.
Mhm.
I'm curious what your process is like as the person typing a text. Do you go slow and pause and really feel into the words? Because I had a moment this week of experiencing that, and it was a lot slower, and the result was a lot more love, and I was less in my mind of being concerned of being like a lengthy text. I have to be quick, right? I have to be succinct. I stepped out of that, and I had a little bit more of like holding their hand and walking them on this journey. It felt good.
So you're asking me from my perspective when I send a text if I'm feeling the emotion behind the text?
Or like what your process is like for the words that you choose. Because I think
Oh,
we all have, I mean, I can speak for myself, but there are definitely moments when I'm sending texts where it's an autopilot kind of thing. And
Mhm.
we've talked about being mindful of doing that in our group text versus like other family communication texts where it's like, okay, got the message. I'll see you soon. And
yeah. I'll
what's up?
typically I'll typically make a text and read it first before, but I can't anticipate how the person will receive it, but I do put love behind it. Like the one I think you're talking about is where I asked you, um, it's funny because I mean, I could ask you the same thing. What were your emotions behind the text that you sent me? And we had this conversation, a friend and I did last night. She's moving, and I sent her a text and said, "So I have this boundary. I don't move people who haven't already boxed up their things. I don't just show up and say, 'Yay, yeah, I'm moving with you. Let's pack all of your things in a box.' I show up, you do the work of getting them into a box unless you express that you need my help to box things up. And then I know that you're committed to the move and that you're doing your part of it, and I'm there to assist you because I have a truck." So we had had some texts back and forth together, and she had thanked me for setting the boundary and holding her to it. And then she said, I hate texts. They send off this weird vibe." And
Mhm.
what you're saying is sometimes the meaning, I don't think necessarily the meaning of a text and the words that are sent carry the emotion that the person who sends them. So, like, I sent that text to you with love, and I read it and said, "I shouldn't send this." And then I heard, "You should send this." And I read it again and I said, "It's about love. It's about going within. It's about doing what we always are supposed to do, which is induce our own genius always." And so I sent it. And then I still felt regret, like I shouldn't have
Mm.
sent that. But I felt like important for us, especially at the core of what we're doing, is to never do what other people think we should. And I think that was the gist of the text. I know that was the gist of the text is we should always go within and we should always bring up our own answer and we should not be telling each other what we think we should be doing. That comes from within us. So I think that when I send a text to somebody, yeah, I'm always coding it in love, and I'm always coming from a place of love. But sometimes I send it when I don't want to send it. And in your case, I didn't want to send it, and I sent it anyway because that was the message that I got was to send it. And in my friend's case, having that chance to talk to somebody face to face is more laden with emotion than just leaving a text sitting there because I think words are cold. And my husband and I just talked about this. Words, I believe, were developed so that people could lie. Like words are created so people could lie. Otherwise, we'd be reading each other's thoughts. And if we read each other's thoughts, there's truth in everything we think. Like in the moment, you're thinking your truth, right? Maybe you'll back out of it and say, well, I don't necessarily believe that. But your thoughts, if we could read each other's thoughts, we wouldn't need words. But when we have words, we're able to say things that maybe aren't nice, maybe like be kind or die. Like maybe we're saying things that we're not thinking. But in that case, with the text that I sent you, yeah, I did read it and I did say I shouldn't send this. And I even corrected it. And then I was told, send it. And I was like, okay. And for the most part, the words that we say are messages to us also. So I felt like that text was as much a message to you as it was to me.
It's I appreciate the thought. I was asking more broadly. I forgot about that one this week. I was thinking of one from like when we first started GI, but I'm glad that you brought that up for this week. I was telling July before you came on that I had an experience of this week where I was sending a message to someone and um I love brevity, I love directness and so I want the message to be as short and direct and pertinent as possible. And then my then I got in my mind of like, okay, well, I paused, I felt into it, knowing who I was communicating with, knowing the journey that that individual and I have been on. Was this brief message really what was needed in that moment? And it wasn't. And so I sat with it. I changed a couple words. I sat with it. Is this what's needed? And what I noticed when I paused to sit was that there's almost like this get it done kind of impulse that wants to come up. You sent the message, get it done. Be done with it and move on to the next thing. And that's what I was challenging because, initially when the message came, yeah, it started from a pure space and then it was like wrapped with like a rush. It wasn't all pure. And by sitting with it, I was able to, okay, ask myself, well, why did I choose that particular word? Well, what am I trying to justify to myself by choosing that particular word? Is there another word that's also pertinent that I can include? And I fiddled around with that a couple times, changing it from one word to another. And then there was also the impulse of like, it's good enough. Like, but I want it to be more than good enough. And then I had this persona telling me like, it's so funny because it's programming, right? We know that it's programming now. Whereas like, men don't deal with this. Men just send it. Why? How come that person gets to be brief? How come I don't? How come I'm not allowed to be brief? And it was the recognizing that, like, okay, well, maybe that person being brief is their lesson to be brief, and I know that my lesson is to case it with love. So knowing that about my lesson and about my experience and my journey and where I am, why am I comparing myself through this baggage and this lens of I'm a woman, I'm too much in the emotion, I need to be more like a man? Like, why? Right? And so it ended up being so it was this balance between don't over explain yourself, don't feel like these are the thoughts I was telling myself. Don't over explain yourself, don't feel like you have to justify because I was backing out of something. So the context was the message was backing out of something because a new opportunity, I use the word materialized, this opportunity materialized and it's important for me to take it. And there were other words that an important trip came up. And then, Kay, as you're saying, okay, well, that is a catchphrase that a lot of people use to mean a certain thing, kind of like a flaky bail. Is that really? I know that that's not what I mean because it generally is an important trip came up. But if I use that catchphrase, how is that going to be received? And I hear what you're saying, Kay, that we can't always lean into how people receive it. And that was a space I used to be in of like, oh, how they're going to receive it. I need to box myself in so they receive it the way I intend it. I stepped out of that and just recognized, okay, it is an important trip. What's an authentic way that I can say it that's new and conveys that there's like some love behind it? And it was what could have been a 30-second text turned into like a 2.5 minute process. Because every time I had the message, I sat the phone down. Instead of the impulse to just hit send, I sat the phone down and then I sat with it and was like, okay, does this feel right? And it was cool. I'd never sent messages like that before.
I want to tell Kay too what I was saying. We got a few special requests for subjects to talk about, questions to answer. It really falls in line with what you ladies are talking about. So I'd like to, yeah, right. I'd like to ask the first question, and then maybe the two of you can answer that and still incorporate it with what you were just speaking about with text messages. I think it's all relatable.
Okay.
All right. So the first one, the first one is, how do we handle conflict with loved ones? And then they said, for example, like negative energy in our homes, maybe with kids, significant other, a parent. And also, how do we handle this without feeling or doing it in the air of obligation? So even though you're not necessarily talking about conflict, I think you ladies could like kind of integrate what you're speaking about with the text messages and how it could come off with how we also handle situations at home.
That is a fantastic question. I also love that you're getting them prior to the call. I think that's a really great way to allow people to submit anonymously rather than revealing themselves, which I feel like some people are not ready to do yet. And that's great that they've found a way to reach out. I love that.
I'm so grateful for this question. This is relationships to the core.
Yeah.
I mean, being human is about managing conflict within yourself. You're not creating this huge fire in front of you that you can't get past because it's so much energy. It's just a low vibration.
I would like to.
Such a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to do something. July, when you have memory of me at the Heartland giving that scalar wave talk, and we've talked about it on this call, it wasn't it was related to what I said, but I would like to draw out what I said. It feels like it's very relevant to this. I want to check.
Okay.
Is that something you can see? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Because if it wasn't, I needed to get a new pen. This came to me, a year ago, and it's been helpful, and it's helpful to be reminded of it. And okay. So people talk about us as being the light. I'm glad this is coming up again because I haven't thought about it in this way in a long time.
Yeah.
What I'm doing. Okay. I'm just going to tap in and make sure that it's delivered the way the person asking this question and the people watching it. So we can think about ourselves as light, this phrase light worker, light bearer. And what does that mean? Light can be a particle or light can be a wave. From a physics conversation, that's what people say. I like to think about it as a wave because then this explanation makes sense. So this download came at a time when I was being frustrated that people that I loved felt like they were betraying me.
Mhm.
And the feeling of betrayal was a very specific feeling. It came from a place of, I trusted you, I aligned with you, and now it feels like you're deviating from that. And when I looked more closely, it was specifically at the level of, I thought you thought the same as I did. That's really where the feeling of betrayal came from. I trusted, I thought that you thought the same as I did, and now you're showing me a place where we think differently. That means I can't trust you. And I think a lot of us go through something like that, right? We find a friend, we find a mentor, we find someone we follow online, and they speak to us. They say something that resonates for us, that we agree with, that we align with. And so I know in my experience, it was like a all in. Yeah, I'm all in. I follow everything. Follow everything you say. And then there has to get to a point, because we're different people, where that person says something that we don't agree with. Because if we agreed with every single thing they said, we would be occupying the same space, and two people can't do that. So it's, first of all, step one, recognizing that in the context of relationships, there are absolutely going to be places where we don't agree. There have to be, because we are different people. And so if I talk about this and if I draw this as a picture of a light wave, it gives some context. Okay. So if you are familiar with a sine wave or a cosine wave from sound or from light or from physics, it looks like this. Although it would be that, imagine it's exactly the same, right? This kind of expands outward in a weird way. Where's the, okay, so the camera's giving me pause. So it's going to take a moment to focus back in. So what that means is that the wave goes up and the wave goes down. And there's this straight line. And so the wave is compression of particles. And when it goes up, that's the light part. And when it goes down, that's the refractory period of the particles. And it's basically the darkness. There exists darkness in light. And that's why when we talk about,
Please repeat that. Please repeat that.
there exists darkness in light. It is literally a part of the wave compression pattern.
Mhm.
So let's talk about waves within a pool, because people can think of waves in a pool or when you drop a pebble. I'm so distracted by the fact that I'm blurry
I
right
know,
now.
like, don't do like, put your hand towards your camera.
There we
you
go. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Alright.
Thank you. So maybe if I hold it out here too, it'll be better. Okay, so
Mhm.
this is the light of the light wave. This is the dark of the light wave. This is the light of the light wave. This is the dark of the light wave. And if we make waves, if you've ever been in like a pool near the edge and you make waves and you splash, or in a tub, there's the water level. And then if you splash, it goes higher than the water level and then also goes lower than the water level. And so that's what this line represents. Okay. That would be like the water level in the pool before you splash. And then you get the waves really high. And then these are called peaks and these are called troughs. And these get lower than the water level. And you see it when you throw a pebble in the ocean or in a pond, it'll do the same thing. So by having that light, there is already a displacement that's less than it was before. So we all have that within us.
Mhm.
So now I'm going to talk about dropping two pebbles. And this is going to be, I know how I said it before. I know how
Mhm.
I like to explain it to my girls. What's the way that I need to explain it right now? Okay, let's say. Okay. So now we have two waves. We have this wave, which let's say is one person. That's the first one I had. And then we have this other wave. Let's say this is another person. And right here, I've represented them as different this way and this way.
Mhm.
They could also be different they could be different in all sorts of ways. Just for simplicity, I've made it different. That one of them is a little bit forward in location. Okay. So
Mhm.
now we have two light waves. And the ways that those light waves interact with each other is very predictable. It's addition. That's all it is addition. So anywhere where they both are light is actually going to end up bigger than it was before. So those are going to add together and it's going to end up here. All right.
You said anywhere where they're light.
Where they're both light, where they're both that peak, the peaks add up and it goes up.
Mhm.
Anywhere where there's a trough and they both have a trough, that is going to be lower than either one of them was independently. That's
Mm.
important. Lower than either one of them was independently.
Mm.
Okay. And
Mhm.
then it's going to have more of a complex pattern because there's some up, some neutral, some down, somewhere like this where they're both hitting zero, that's going to be zero.
Yeah.
Somewhere where this one's high and this one's low, they're going to level out to neutral. That's actually also really important. Look at that. I have new ways to explain this.
I
Okay.
love it.
So there are 3 important points of 2 people communicating. There are points in that interaction where I'm going to feel better than I have before. They're going to amplify the greatness about me,
Mhm.
and I'm going to feel supported.
Mhm.
There are going to be points where they make me feel better. Let's
Mhm.
say I'm this one, and they comfort me. They bring it up to neutral. So their presence is going to already improve aspects of my life. Improvement here, improvement here. This one, I will feel more excited because I was already amped up. Here, I
Mhm.
will feel comforted because I was a negative space and now I'm brought up.
And can you mention why that
This one,
their presence makes you feel good? Because they're light, right?
because they're light, and their light in that aspect of me is opposite that light of that aspect in me. So that would be because I'm thinking about these as different aspects, right? Like,
Mhm.
so this would be an aspect of like my excitement and joy. And like us on this phone call amplifies
Mhm.
all of our excitement and joy, right? We feel better
Yeah.
on this call with each other than we
Yeah.
do sometimes in our own space.
Yes.
And then there are going to be parts about me, let's say that I'm showing up on this call a little bit bummed about something, but you ladies are carrying me because you're positive in that dimension. So now I feel better about it. And these are the 2 danger zones.
Mhm.
And this is a danger zone because I already don't feel good about something. And then
Mhm.
now the way that you act or the fact that you also don't feel good about it, now I feel worse about myself in that dimension.
Mhm.
These are the 2 danger zones for very different reasons. This is a danger zone because this creates codependence. If
Mhm.
I'm only attending to this aspect of me and I notice that I feel better in that person's presence, I'm going to seek their presence to get to there rather than doing the work myself or recognizing that there are areas of me that don't feel good. And that's just part of being a person, right?
I have to mute because I get that excited over your scaling waves.
This is beautiful because this is a dimension that is new for all of us on this call right now. We've never talked about it this way. So that's dangerous because we think that person helps me feel better, I have to be around them all the time. This part is dangerous because if we only fixate on this aspect of this entire experience with this individual, we're going to say, they make me feel worse. I don't want to be around them. Right? Like, why would I why would I choose to be around someone that makes me feel worse? Because we're only looking at that dimension. When we look at it as a whole, and that's I like what the 3 of us are getting better at doing this with each other all the time, is appreciating that all of this is gonna happen with another person. And I'm empowered to decide which one of these I'm gonna pay attention to. So I can pay attention to this exclusively, and that runs the risk of really getting into a manic excited space sometimes, right? If it's not grounded, like it can spiral out. And now I've just told myself why my girls sometimes spiral out because they're over here all the time. Then when they bicker and they fight, they're down here. You make me feel worse about something about myself I haven't healed. And then this would be when one of them's talking a lot and the other one doesn't feel like they need to talk or something like that. And so we get to decide as a human and with our free will, we get to decide which one of these parts we're going to pay attention to. And we get to decide what we want this to mean. What this can mean for us is the presence of another light, the presence of another friend is showing us where we're dipping so that we can work on it on our own later. Basically, that individual is amplifying it for us, or they're triggering us, or they're revealing it for us. And again, we have relationships with people where they can show us all these things. But if I've decided that there's someone in my life that only shows me this, then I'm going to decide not to be around that person. Or I'm going to assign a limited value of what that person offers me when really that person offers me all 3 of these things. Wow, that was super cool.
I know, girl, you jammed that, honey. Like that is so. You were so in flow in that explanation. It was definitely beautifully channeled for everyone listening, especially the person who made the request. Anybody who gets to watch this later, like that was so educational to help people to understand. Like you put into an illustration what I tried to put into words in a video where I said we don't just completely trash or disregard a person
Mhm.
just because they are that one little aspect down below.
Mhm.
When we know as a whole, yeah, that there's a whole bigger picture there. I love your picture. I love your scalar waves.
And so this is thank you. And so this is context. This isn't answering the how do you deal with it on the moment by
Mm,
moment actual day. This is a bigger picture awareness of how to when we're able to, because we know all three of us don't always remember this,
yeah.
uh, that it's possible to step back and go, okay, this person's showing me something, right? And then how do we actually interact? Well, do you want to speak to your process for how you interact, July, when you're in those moments?
Yeah. Let me think about that because I don't, when I'm in those moments, I tend to spiral. I will. Uh-oh, you're muted.
I'm going to challenge you and pattern interrupt you for a second.
Okay, okay.
When you say you tend to spiral, can you shed some love on yourself of how long
Mhm,
that spiral used to be and how long that spiral is now? Because the spiral itself isn't always bad, but you've made a lot of progress, haven't you?
mhm. Yeah, I have. I don't know what it is about me. I enjoy just every moment, you know, what every moment has to offer. So, because I learned from it, I learned so much from all of my dealings with my loved ones and even people that I'm meeting and don't necessarily know up close and personal. So it's like taking everything and putting it in a bag of experience and being able to retrieve what I need at a later date. But how I deal with it though, especially when it's let's talk about people that we do know, you know, like let's say with us, let's just make it easy for and understandable so that everybody can understand, including we'll be able to have a really good, we can take something away from this, the three of us. So if it's us, if it's either one of you two, and I, you know, get in one of my moments, I will I take mm, not a whole lot of time. It used to be longer, but like lately, because I've been doing a lot of self help and really working on myself, it doesn't last that long. I may have given this illustration before um, when I used to run track. So my coach was teaching me, you know, what to do, how to do it very efficiently. And basically, it was like, get out there and sprint. We're going to do some sprints or, you know, longer dashes or whatever. So, anyway, when I would get back to the finish line, huffing and puffing, and I'm like, oh my God, like, does this ever get better? Will I ever stop being out of breath? And he said, no, never. You will never stop being out of breath, but your recovery time will become shorter and shorter.
Hmm.
And I really feel that that just resonated with me so deeply that it applies like across the board to pretty much any situation in my life. So, especially when it comes to, you know, the emotions going up and down, above and below those waves, from light to dark, from dark to light. And so it gets quicker where it's like I realign myself back with God. And once I realign myself back with God, everything changes. And I'm now back at one of those peaks above the line in the scalar waves. And before then, I'll just try to think like, what is my thought process? It never gets really deep. It never gets too deep. It's just inner complaints, you know, just typical stuff. Um, and then I'll catch myself and I'm like, I'm being a little too human, if that makes sense. A little too 3D, right?
So
Because
you take a moment to give language that maybe the viewer will help them. So when
yeah.
you say that you're being too 3D, what does that mean to you? And how do you shift into a different space?
So I feel like, and let me just kind of like break it down for the viewers. There is the purpose work that we do. And because of the purpose work that we do, we view things on two levels. We view them on an earthly grounded level, and we view them on a level that is from like how would you describe that, AJ?
I
Because I
would
don't
say,
want to make it sound
yeah, without putting too much belief or like framework, basically there's the 3D would be
oh,
like this lifetime, and then the other view would be the um the that's funny, it just left and it was right as it came
no,
on.
and
So
it's like I can't even
so
just
okay, we're wanting to explain for the viewers, like when we're in the middle of conflict, thinking about the 3D versus the non 3D and how to break it down and what that means to us in a way that's digestible for other people. So I would say the 3D is like the day-to-day human moments of like, I'm frustrated by this event that happened.
mhm,
And then the purpose work is more of what am I creating by being in this life that persists longer than this life? So yes, sometimes
mm,
it's the family legacy and the children that we're raising, and that can be a big part of it. Energetically, it means I know that my reaction to this trigger is having an impact on the universe bigger and grander than I could
mm,
ever humanly appreciate. And so even though no one's going to see it, I'm not posting it on the internet for people to
mm,
get likes. I know that my purpose work is to hold myself accountable and have an elevated reaction to this better than I've ever had before, and
yeah.
that those reactions keep elevating.
I think you know what popped into my mind, and it was definitely a download. Conversations with God. Like if you are involved in that frequency, that's what kind of elevates you out of the earthly or humanly or 3D type of thinking that could trap you. But then once we align ourselves, none of us can do any better than that on our own. We need that. We need that alignment. And that's the main thing that helps me whenever I feel any type of, emotion that makes me feel less than.
Mhm.
Because the the things that I've been noticing lately that have really been impacting my behavior is the fact that since we all are one, whatever we think about another person, basically, we're really saying that that's what we think of ourselves.
Mhm.
And however we feel about another person is really, in essence, how we feel about ourselves. And even when it comes to judgment, if we start to formulate a thought that is not so positive and maybe judging another person for something that they've maybe said or done, that judgment really boomerangs and comes right back around to us about ourselves. If we can just really see everyone as a piece of the whole and that we're all interconnected, I think that helps. Well, that's what's been helping me personally is looking at everything from that perspective, shared space. And I love that you said that in the scalar ways. You said it's a shared space. We don't sometimes we, when we have our own individual space, that's one thing, but whenever we are sharing space with each other, not only here like we are together, but even just we don't even have to be on the phone, on a call, or anything like that, but we are connected. We have energetic cords connected. So that's still a shared space. And I don't want to go too deep into because there's something I even wanted to mention about that, AJ, and we'll talk about that another time. But like I noticed, and have you noticed that you and I get like the cough and everything at the same time? Right? Have you noticed that? Have you picked up on that?
Now that you're pointing it out, yeah, there have been times.
Mhm. So to me, I feel like those are energetic cords. So yeah.
And I mean, there's so much that we can speak about this because the question addressed all the things that I know that I have dealt with, like parents, kids. I live with my
Yeah.
parents and my kids right now. I have a
Yeah.
spouse. And I feel like that process has a constant learning process with each of these people. And what really helps me is I think people watching this need to recognize that we're channeling here and that the wisdom that comes through us when we're on this call doesn't always represent what we are able to live up to in a moment by moment. Like, I know I've gone back and watched my videos and been like, whoa, I didn't know that I knew that. I didn't remember that I knew that. Like, what we speak here is truth coming down, and it's like purified from our experiences, and it is available to us. And also, we are human, and in a moment by moment, we don't always live up to the words that come through us here. So, what does that mean? That means learning to be kind to myself in the moments where I haven't engaged or showed up with those familial triggers to the degree of mastery that I expect of myself. I expect that once I have the awareness of how things could go, that I am there immediately. And that is an unfair expectation. That's a perfectionism level expectation that a lot of us experience in different parts of our lives. And when I remember that it's a muscle, everything is a muscle. So getting up to that level is a muscle, and sometimes I can hit it and sometimes I can't. And the
Mhm.
more that I hit it, the easier it becomes to hit it.
Yeah.
So when I am not performing there, my version of a dip looks, there's the self-talk that all of us have. Mine is, I'm better than this.
Mhm.
There's a frustration that I'm better than this. There's I can't believe they're doing this. Let's be honest, there is still the version of, how dare they? How could they?
Yeah.
The betrayal that I feel this way from someone else,
Mhm.
frustration, and that's when the walls go up. I can't trust this person. I can't trust this loved one in my family because this has happened. So, the child version of me, oh man, would put up walls like I don't know if you ladies had this. I'd sit in my room and I'd be like, never gonna talk to them again. They're
Yeah.
never gonna know my secrets.
Of
You know,
course.
they're never gonna
Mhm.
know how I truly feel. I'm just gonna be
Mhm.
stone faced.
And
Mhm.
And
that's funny because it doesn't matter. It's a veil. Whatever you feel, whatever you think is exactly what's going out into the universe.
Mhm.
say
Yeah.
more. Can you say more about
Whatever
that?
you feel, whatever you think, it doesn't matter what you say. That's what goes out into the universe. You can
Mhm.
say whatever you want.
And that goes back to how we were saying that the words are tagged with the actual intentional emotion, right? That if we use that veil of the language of I don't know, I don't trust you, or I don't love you because I feel hurt, what's really happening is the hurt is being conveyed of I'm
So let's
hurt.
take it to a real level. Like when you said you go to your room as a kid, I think as adults we tend to withdraw. And
Mhm.
sometimes people call that pausing, but as a real example, like, I mean, A real example would be this week, AJ, right? Like this whole week, you stayed out of the chat and paused.
Yeah.
Like you paused, you went into your room and you closed the door and you said, I'm not going to talk to this energy right now. I'm going to go. And what you said was, I'm going to raise my energy vibrationally. And so, like, as adults, we could do that, right? We could pause and we could say, hey, I think we should pause this conversation. If you're having a conflict, just taking it down to the roots, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're having a conflict, you could pause it and you could say, let's not do this right now. Let's come back when we're full of love and at a better vibration. Or you could continue to do it right then, but just remembering that anything you say is like that blanket of everything that's real underneath it, which is what you think and what you feel. And that's out in the universe. So that's not hidden. People think it's hidden, but it's not. Even when you're pausing, your thoughts and your feelings are still out in the universe. Just because your words aren't being said, just because your love language of showing people time or whatever, love languages, if we talked about that, we could talk about that for like an hour, right? People have love languages.
Yeah.
But your love language might be attention. And if you're feeling unloved, you're probably going to go within and not give attention to others. You're going to give attention to yourself so that you can get back to your self-love. But no matter what, in any situation, in any conflict, when you're there and maybe you're having a heated conversation with your dad and things are blowing up and you're whatever in that moment, or with your kids and things are really high tension because you can feel it with the energy. Somebody's got their scalar wave higher or lower than you are, and you're there. The best thing you could do in that moment is remember that we're vibrational beings, that everything we think, everything we feel is out there already. And the words don't matter as much as how we're feeling. Like that, you said, conversations with God.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're withdrawing yourself, still remembering that your vibration is how you think and how you feel. It isn't necessarily just attention or words to others. I mean, that's relationships, right? Like
Yeah.
in the moment, in the heat of the moment where you could say the wrong thing, even if you went silent, what you think and what you feel, if you're not in the Christ consciousness or God consciousness or high vibration consciousness, if you're not truly feeling unconditional love for that person, that's out there also.
Yeah.
So how
I,
does that
I love
translate
that
for
we
you?
create space for each other with that. Like AJ's illustration was like perfect because we all go through things like that. And so by us allowing each other to have that space, it shows the unconditional love on our part, because what I always look at is how we always come back around. Like for me, and I know you ladies feel the same way. So, but like I look at us as I look at the three of us and GI as infinite. In my mind and in my heart, there is nothing that is going to come between any of that or us. So all of us have those moments. We all have. We all have had those moments where we needed to go and realign and recalibrate. Recalibrate within, and then reattach ourselves in a new way to what we're aligning with, which all of us believe in the same higher power, which is why we've been drawn together here. So once we do that, like we each get a chance to expand the person taking the space as well as the other two. We get to expand. There is nothing is constant. We're all constantly changing and evolving based upon our environments and how we're growing. And as we grow, We're going to have the ups and downs of light and darkness, or we're going to have what we also may call like errors, mistakes. Um, these things are necessary for growth. They're necessary for expansion. And so when they are, that's where we unconditionally allow ourselves to also create that space for the other person to be able to expand, even if it is what we may feel um, sometimes at the time as like an infringement upon our own space. But
Or
that,
like a stop in momentum. Like when you took the
yeah,
pause for 4 weeks, it was like, wow,
that's
but momentum still carried on because
yeah,
the feelings and the thoughts were behind it. The motivation to stay infinite
yeah.
in the mission. Yeah.
And I think
I
we
don't
all handle
remember
things
taking a
differently.
pause. Have I taken a pause from this group?
Well,
I think
you
only we
haven't
can
taken
answer
a
that.
pause, but you definitely we can see when you have your moments, like that time when you told us in the video that you get quiet when you are, I guess, I don't know, was it were we talking about when
When people
we,
say things and I don't have a response, like when I'm going
yeah,
within and I hear no words, then
yeah.
I don't use words.
Yes,
That
and
Mhm.
there's been a lot of those types of pauses. To me, it's equivalent. I've noticed when those
Oh,
happen, because when those do happen, they have I've learned to just, since you're not saying anything, I won't say anything, but I just let the time pass. But I noticed that there are thoughts that have been put out in the universe, like you were just describing to AJ. There are thoughts that have been put out into the universe, and I hear them very clearly. And so
mhm,
I will also pause instead of talking about it because I know that you're getting through it. And at the
mhm.
same time, while I'm pausing, I'm creating space and holding unconditional love because I know that we're going to like come right back to grounded space.
And I think it's important to indicate that like pause is all relative and
Yeah.
really, as Kay mentioned, is in contrast to what was happening in that moment because and as July is saying, like we're constantly growing, so the way that we interact in the group text is constantly changing. I remember there were times when we would only touch base like once or twice a day, and then when I was going through something, oh my goodness, I was flooding that text with all sorts of stuff that I was working through,
Yeah.
and then that was a phase that got through. And
Mhm.
even I love that this is being brought up because um this is nice for me to indicate that I'm going to be approaching the chat a little bit differently. I was reminded by someone of something that I love, which is just because someone has said something doesn't mean that it requires a response. And so
Mhm.
I was finding myself and I was putting this on myself, but in an obligatory role of like hearting messages to show, hey, yeah, I saw it. And that was starting to not feel good because it was more
Mm.
of, I got to do this because this is here.
Mm,
And
yeah.
and I don't, but that was like a
Mhm.
programming, and so
Mhm.
stepping back and going, "Okay, well, I will engage when it feels right." And July, you're really good at saying that. You're like, "I will engage while it feels right."
Mhm.
So for me this week, it was realigning with myself.
Mhm.
Yeah, I align with GI, but first and foremost, I align with myself. I align with myself,
Mhm.
I align with God, then I align with GI.
Mhm.
And that is not a bad thing that it's in that order.
That's a perfect order.
That's how it should
Mhm.
be, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
First within. Okay, before you got on the call at the very beginning, I was even describing to July that my method of meditation has expanded a little bit this week. Whereas we've gone through that phase of pulling in the light from above, I shifted it because that felt like I was receiving something from outside of me. And I shifted it to going within from the heart and having the heart expand outward, just as a way to really emphasize that it's already within me and that I'm um, like glowing that and growing that and then stepping into the next step. So it's been really fun. And I get so drunk on your ladies' energy that it was like, I can't do this chat. because I'm going to align with July. I'm going to align with Kay. I'm going to say yeah because it feels good and we're both on that high positive. And it's like, okay, step back, like, but who am I?
Yep, I know what you mean. And that brings me to the second thing that they asked, which is perfect at this time to answer. The second thing was, how do we get to where we are with our self-care? And they said that they made a comment. They said that if I were to like put you guys on mute, you could still feel the energy, and there's like smiles and everything. Like,
Aw.
how do you get to that point is what they want to know. How do we get to that point where our, our self-care has gotten us to where this energy that we're speaking of carries us over those scalar wave lines?
Sine. Those
That's
are sine
what
waves.
AJ,
Yeah.
yeah, what AJ just said. But like when you go within and you take care of yourself and then you align with yourself first and then you go outside of that. Like exactly how she just described that meditation. Like starting inside and growing it out so that it's not affected, like she said, also drunk on other people's energy. Like you're in your own energy because you're not here to be a duplicate of anybody else or anything else. You're here to be your energy. And so if you feel like your energy is something, then go find, like AJ said, a quiet place, close the door, and be where you need to be to realign your energy and what you believe you are, and start being able to say, I am. Instead of saying, I am what hurt, I am whatever, I bring it back to what the core of you wants to be, right? I am happy. I am harmony. I don't know.
Complete. Oh, that phrase from that Joseph. What's his name? I know it's Neville Goddard's lessons,
Joseph
but
Rodriguez.
yeah, he had one that says, I am complete. How that carried me
Mhm.
for this week. Like,
Yeah.
what would it feel like if I felt I am complete?
Mhm.
Right?
And the feeling your energy is a journey. Like, okay, so again, to remind that how we are on this call is like a space. It doesn't mean we're like that 100% off this call. Like,
Yeah.
we know this call is happening. We prepare ourselves for this call. We bring our best versions of ourselves for the people watching on this call. Doesn't mean that when I turn this camera off, I'm not like frustrated at my kids for a moment or whatever.
Things happen, right? Things
Yeah.
happen.
Things happen. So for me, I get really, and this was something that I needed to work through. So I get triggered when people tell me how I'm feeling or how I'm
Mhm.
acting, and especially when they're like, either you're this or this. And I feel like everyone should just know as a PSA that anytime anyone, including yourself, says either this or this, you know the ego is involved.
Mhm.
Because the ego has stepped in and said, there are only two possible solutions, and I know what both of them are, and it's limited to these things. And in
Yeah.
reality, like usually it's something that's not either of those things.
Mhm.
And so I attach so much to words that when people say you're this, and especially like people do that as a distancing tool.
Hmm.
Like, I was in a class once where an instructor said, say I.
Mhm.
Say, I believe this, I feel this, because you're talking about you. You'll notice culturally people will say, you know what it's like when you go to the store. It's like, don't tell me what I know what it's like. That's like step one, that person has put up a barrier. If they're saying, you know what it's like when you do this and you do that, it's because they are not ready yet to shine light on themselves by saying I. And so when people do that in conversation, when they say you, when they're really talking about them,
Mhm.
triggers me. Or when they tell me how, like, what my
Mhm.
beliefs are, what my motivations are, what my intentions are, trigger me. And it triggers me because I was so for a long time believing what people were saying when that was what they were saying.
Mm.
And it caused me a lot of pain and baggage because I literally like, okay, this person says that's who I am. I'm stubborn. You know,
Mhm.
I take that on. And then I got to a place of not taking it on. And then it was like, for saying that about me, you know?
Yeah.
And so it needed to be another layer of like, that's about them.
Yeah.
That's not about me. And so going through that process helps me find my energy when it's like, that's about them,
Mhm.
about them, which is really hard to do when it's a loved one. When it's a loved one saying something hurtful, not hurtful, but in that coded way, that's like an extra step of like, that's about them. So,
Yeah.
What
so that
about
helps
this
me.
is not mine?
This is not, yeah, what about this is not mine?
Mhm. Yeah. I love taking a step back and assessing the situation
Mhm.
because I realize that whatever a person is creating in their mind about me is what's causing me to act a certain way,
Mm.
you know? And so then when I recognize what's going on, again, that's where we have to take that ascension and rise above all of that. And when we're in that space, that ascended space, in that God energy, then that gets to take over and just smooth everything back to where it needs to be, where neither one of us are feeling, like at odds in any way, whether it's, oh my gosh, so cute. I
It's so
love
sweet.
cats. But neither one of us are going to feel any of that, low vibe energy. We're now just because of like, oh my gosh, I love like that AJ, that demonstration you did with the
Sign.
scalar waves. You said it's a sign?
Totally. Sine. I mean, it could be
Oh,
scalar too. Scalar was like her lesson of like big, big waves. So it
yeah,
could be either, but that
so
physical
sign,
shape is a sine wave.
Sine.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
got it. Okay. So the whole explanation of the sign, people are like this, that needs to go viral. People need to understand that. Like they can understand it without even knowing what it is, just by the way you explained it, because of the way you broke it down. And so that's where we all end up. We have our highs, we have our lows. And so then we come back to that space after we've elevated, after one person has elevated and ascended to God energy to a high frequency. That creates a space for everyone. Just our sheer presence affects everyone's ability to feel good.
Ah, that's what you were getting at earlier. Say more.
Yeah, so when you're it's like let's say your aura is expanded, right? And your aura contains your frequency, your energy. And so at first your energy was like a shade of gray. But then once you start to ascend and you start filling yourself with that frequency that comes from being in God's energy, your aura turns into a shade of gold, like the sunlight and the sun's rays. And, like light code activations. And so once your aura changes to that color and it is expanded and people are within that energy, they just also went from gray to gold and they feel it just like and
Look
it's
at
like,
this is perfect timing. Look at the kitty cat with the flower. It's like
oh, so
that kitty cat's
cute.
in God energy right now. And we
Yeah.
all feel good watching the kitty cat doing that.
Yes. I just want to take it in. I know.
She's hunting. Yeah, she's a
So
sweetheart.
beautiful.
She's crazy. Kittens are crazy. I've forgotten that. But
And
so fun. So
there's,
fun.
as July's saying, with only like one person, like we did the work. I didn't feel this way a year ago about self-love. I didn't feel this way 2
Mhm.
years ago about self-love. And the
Mhm.
three of us met in the presence of a mentor who really did a fantastic job about like like the tips and tricks of like, well, what would it feel like to love yourself every moment? Like every moment you're starting to feel frustrated, asking yourself, what do I need right now? And then giving yourself, like, she created a culture and a community where we were immersed and surrounded by people that took this on as like, okay, I can give myself self-love every moment of the day. It's allowable, it's acceptable, it's normalized. And now the three of us, I've got so many goosebumps in my legs. The three of
Mhm.
us take that on, and then we are amplified by being on this call. And so now we're normalizing it for the people watching it. Like, this is what life should be. Taking
Mhm.
care of yourself first. Like, yeah, it's selfish. Of course, my life is about me. My life is not about you. Why would my life be about you?
Yeah.
That's
Right.
selfish of you to think my life is about you. You know, and just owning it, and then trusting that other people are going to see like that light from that individual trickled down to us, and now we have that light and then we trickle it on, and that's how it works. That is how we awaken other people. And we're not sitting here going, I found the secret to self-love and I'm not telling anyone.
Yeah,
We all
right.
can keep suffering. I'm going to sit here in joy and bliss.
Or
Right.
Yeah.
pay me
Yeah.
money and I'll teach you how to find your own self-love. It's
Right.
Which
about
we
going
do.
within. Go
Right.
within.
And we do a version of the pay me because we do know and honor that there is an energetic exchange. And we also give a lot of it away for free, which is why we have these calls. So
Yeah,
that people
right?
can get a sense of who we are and what we offer and what it can feel like. And
Mhm.
Right.
then yes, we do all have like paywalls.
Yeah.
But it's
Um,
not as like if we get into deeper of this is how I do it and I'd like to show you
Mhm.
how I do it. That's the exchange that we give, right? The
Yeah.
and
energy of this is how I do it personally. This is how AJ does it personally. This is how July does it personally. That's the energetic exchange of if you want our personal stories down to do this, do that, do this, do that, we suggest it and then go on your own way. That's the exchange. But
I
yeah, it's
like
not a secret. It's self-care.
I like Oliver's approach, which is that
Mhm.
I have yet to have my best idea. Like,
Mhm.
I love that you have defined for yourself, Kay, where that boundary is because I don't have it yet, and I've been asking myself, "Where is my boundary?" Like,
I
Mhm.
don't have
like,
I haven't defined it just for
currently right
now, you
now
know? Like
currently right now yeah.
for now I know what I do and I'm willing to share that. So that exchange for now. I don't have a forever answer of that.
None of our
Yeah.
answers are forever, yeah.
No,
Even how we think
no.
and feel about things are gonna change in a moment, in a day, in a
It's
week.
infinite. Yeah. Like 2
Mhm.
years ago I never would have shared this,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
at the lunch table with a bunch of guys or during a crib game during a break.
Mhm.
Hey,
Yeah.
That's what I
imagine
love
this. Yeah,
myself.
I wouldn't have felt safe enough to share those things.
And, I really took to heart the advice that Oliver said, which is, like, if it feels like the moment to share it, I'm gonna share it. If I've
Right.
created a program where it's behind a paywall and then now it feels like the moment to share it, I'm gonna share it. Like, it
Mhm.
is because by holding it up and saying, "No, you gotta pay for this, my precious," like,
Right. Yeah.
that's I imagined a stone, it's literally a stone in the river of flow. It creates
Yeah.
that blockage.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And
that's cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not about blocking the information from anyone. It's about making it wide known that if the
Mhm.
more that we're in that place of that frequency of love, the more that other people can feel that frequency of love, like this person's asking us. And the
Mhm.
more that we can share, this is how you do it. And it's not easy. When somebody is like, when there's water pouring out of your ceiling, like happened to me this week, it's not
Mhm.
easy to stay in that moment of, oh, this is cool, you know,
Right.
but you can get yourself there by reminding yourself that basically everything is an illusion. And the only thing you're in control of are your thoughts and go from there.
Mhm.
your thoughts and your feelings, it glitched when you said feelings, which I think is funny.
Yeah.
How did it feel when you witnessed yourself staying in that space with the water flowing in your house?
It became comical and I understood more. And I understood it, like,
Mhm.
just an understanding instead of a reaction.
Yeah,
Like, it was
that's a
shock
good
at
place.
first, like, this can't be real. And then to go, "Wait a second, there are solutions," figuring out what's going on, but ultimately not reacting, not falling in that garbage can of anger, because I can't control it. That's just the secondary, kid throwing themselves on the floor and waving their legs and they're pounding their fists, throwing the fit. I can't control this. But not being in that for but a moment. I mean, I certainly wanted to throw myself on the floor, but that doesn't solve anything,
Right.
you know?
And
But
remind me
then
that
just being there, not reacting, taking that moment and being grateful for, oh, this is teaching me something. Kind of like when I fell on my face and found my earbuds.
Mhm.
I mean, you could be angry or upset about things. That's the easy way because it's certainly, I think, when you talk about scalar waves or sine waves, and humans like to think of them in this linear fashion that go like this, but they're actually just a circle. I mean, in real world,
Mhm.
a vibration is a circle, just like you said with a pond,
or even like
a
a
pebble in a
sphere,
pond.
right? Because it's
Right.
all the dimensions.
Yeah,
Like
and
a speaker giving off sound is gonna have that like
yeah, and it's
Mhm.
boom, boom,
yeah.
and we can only see it two-dimensionally or three-dimensionally in a river or a pond, right? Or on paper when you're drawing the scalar waves and you can see where in the linear fashion where say 100 is or where 0 is or negative 100 and then 0. So you're going up to 100, you're at 0, you're going negative 100. So in those moments we have, seconds to react and we could choose how we react. And you can choose to be angry, you can choose to be frustrated, you can choose to respond to someone else's energy, or you can say, wait a second, I'm not upset about this. I am going to be entertained by this. And then you can find the lesson within something. Keep searching for what is this telling me?
Yeah.
Something's always a message.
Yeah. That was cool too. You said, what did you say? Something rather than react a few minutes ago, but I'm like, oh
So
man, that's a clip right there.
yeah, you're choosing to go within rather than react.
That's what you said.
You're feeling your core.
Mhm.
Exactly what you're feeling is that moment. I mean, that's all we have is the moment. And feelings
Mhm.
are magnetic and our
Mhm.
thoughts are electromagnetic. And we're thinking, how is this possible? But then we're
Mhm.
thinking, well, how do I want to feel? And in every moment, I want to feel like bliss, right? I want to feel
Yeah.
love. I want to feel excitement or awe. So it's just getting yourself back to what's
Mm.
this telling me? Like AJ, I think you've said before, or July, one of you have talked about it's a puzzle.
Mhm.
Like it's a puzzle. And you're just there to figure out the pieces of it, not to break the pieces or bite the pieces or be angry at the pieces. You're
Right.
there to figure out how do they go together. Yeah.
And that's a step of the self-care where I mean, you said so many golden parts. That like the logic part of me used to tag them. Like I'd be like tags on all the parts that you said. I'm like, now I want to respond to this because they're all
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah.
And now it's leaning into like which one do I need to respond to? And I think that what you said with the emotions coming up, how do I feel about this? Culturally, there's this discourse of people saying, um, part of me feels like this, part of me feels like this, part of me feels like this, right? And then it I have seen it in so many write-ups and I've done that in write-ups where we feel like to honor ourselves, we have to give attention to how each of those parts feel,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah.
so that you know how I feel about this topic or this event, let me explain to you. Part of me is mad because of this. Part of me is sad because of this. Part of me is, and they're usually in
Yeah.
that when we step into that schema, it's like airing our grievances. Let me tell you how you have done something, and part of me feels disappointed, and part of me feels in pain because of what you've done, and part of me feels. And it's like, well, guess what? You can like the self-care part of it is that you can choose which one of those you want to align with. Do you want to align with all of them and continue to feel discombobulated and a mismatch? Go for it.
Right.
We have like stepped into a different paradigm where it's like which part of me is excited about this? Which part of me is curious about this?
Yeah.
And yeah, I can ask, do I need to heal those parts of me that are in pain or frustrated or saddened by that? I had someone recently tell me that I had triggered them and that and that now they had to take it on their pain body, and I just sat there going,
Uh,
if you feel like that's what you need to do.
That is
Sounds
so
And I-
painful.
And I did not laugh at them at that moment, but I caught
Yeah.
myself. There was a moment of, oh, I feel horrible that I made this person feel this way, and
I'm
then
responsible. Yeah.
I'm responsible, and then, oh man, this person feels like they need to take this forever, and then
Oh.
none of this is mine to tell them because this is their journey, and it doesn't feel right to correct them in this moment. I mean,
Yeah,
correct even
forever.
is an ego word, right? But like
Mhm.
to open their mind, it's not my job. I literally am not supposed to tell them in this moment. This is their
It's
journey.
not your job, but I'm gonna say that I love Eckhart Tolle's video about the pain body.
I
He has
do
a
too.
you saw that? Oh my God.
I
haven't
read
seen
the
that.
book. I haven't seen a video, but I love his
Yeah.
concept of the pain body because
Yeah.
it's about going grocery shopping, right? Or being involved in a social situation. And you
I
come home and you're
forget.
like, why do I feel this way? And it's a cord, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go rewatch it again because he made it almost laughable. When we just, we have to laugh at ourselves. We
Yeah.
can't take ourselves too seriously.
No.
As
And
humans.
AJ's comment about forever, man, that's a
Yeah.
hell of a long time.
And this was a young individual. I mean, they were younger than me.
Yeah.
And they basically just said, now I have to deal with this. Now I have to decide if there's a boundary. And I thought, and they had actually in that moment decided to not go down that path and then to pursue
Yeah.
something different. And it's still ambiguous to me as to whether they've decided to carry this around, but it's also not my,
No.
I'm not
Yeah.
privileged to know that. That's not my business.
So, July, sometimes you said that we just being in the vibrations that we're in trigger others without knowing it. And I know we could choose a different word, but
Mhm.
people feel victimized sometimes in our presence, but it's not our intent.
Mhm.
And just by being in our vibration, it can
Mhm.
sometimes do that to others. Is
Yeah. Like I just I feel
like
that
what
if
AJ said. The pain
it's
body,
just like
causing pain body in others. It isn't that we're doing it, it's that it's
yeah.
happening.
It's that it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's right.
That is
And
like a
I
7-year-old.
know, right? I just learned that you can expand your breathing capacity by doing this. You're
Blowing bubbles?
expanding your lungs. Yeah, you're expanding the breathing capacity in your lungs if you take some time to do that on a regular basis as an exercise. That, if we looked at this as like our energy, our aura, that whatever we're doing in here is what everyone else is going to feel. If we're constant and at peace, they're going to feel that. If we're, blowing all that energy into it, whether it is good energy or not so good energy, as humans, we are completely, we absorb things. There's no other way. We just do. If you're there, you're going to absorb it just by the presence of the person. So, yeah, they're going to know if that was good energy being blown or if it was not so good energy being blown. And so we want people to always pick up on, something that's intentional from us in a good way.
So we have to understand what place we're in. Like if we're feeling in a place of lesser than
Yeah.
and say we respond, in that moment with that person. Like
Mhm.
AJ said at the beginning of this, if you just put that conversation down for a moment
Mhm.
and pause, just pause. Instead of saying whatever, then maybe you can be in that place, find yourself in that place of self-care, in that vibration that you want to be in, coming from the place of not coding something
Mhm.
in love, but rather coming from love.
Mhm.
And when I in the context of this conversation with this individual, I had been triggered and I had put the conversation down, and then I thought I was in a better I mean, I was in a better space, but I still wasn't in the space of love. So I picked up the conversation and I
Mhm.
sent something. And you know what's really funny from an energy perspective is that I sent what I thought was the best that I could in that moment. And when that person shared with me how they felt that the way that they felt attacked and
Mhm.
hurt and betrayed or whatever. I don't remember the exact words, but the words that they felt from the message that I sent, they felt those things at my hands were the things I was feeling when I sent that message,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was actually feeling those things at their hands,
Mhm.
sent my message, and sent that right back to them. So that's what's super cool about this is, as you're saying, July, is that literally the space that you're in is what they're feeling.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not going to feel it as, oh, Alexis is feeling these things.
Mhm.
Sometimes they will if they're in a high vibe space. If they're not in a high vibe space or if it
Mhm.
triggers them, they're going to feel like I am making them feel that way
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because it's like an energy ball. I
Mhm.
received that energy ball. I could set the conversation down and transmute the energy ball or send it on its way. But if I pick up the conversation, I'm literally passing that energy ball to them. And then they think
Mhm.
that how they receive it, depending on the space they're in, and most humans think that I've tried to cause harm rather than the fact that I was doing it from a place of harm, from a place of hurt.
Yeah.
And it
I
can
thought that was
transfer to
interesting.
other conversations, right? Throughout the day.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
say there's
Mhm.
one there and then that energy is left over and you have another one there and that kind of carries over to that one and then they're like, what's going on? And then you have
It's a
another one. And
cloud,
so it's better just to pause it all.
It's like a fart cloud.
a fart cloud.
You're
My
pooping
favorite
in my
description for
air.
energy. It's my favorite description for energy. It's so crude, but everyone gets
Yes.
it. Like you walk into a room and someone has passed gas and then left.
Yeah.
You can walk in and tell what has happened. It's
Yes.
the same thing with energy, but people don't acknowledge it. Is that when you walk
Right.
into a room, you're walking into the funk of what everyone else has left
Yeah.
behind.
And
Right.
it's funny that you said that because I was just thinking the word stink came to mind before you even said that. Like, it's just a stink that was left for
Yeah.
what everyone is vibing in. Oh, that
Yeah.
is so
And some
funny.
people do it on purpose, but that's not.
Yeah.
It's more for attention.
We
You
were
know,
talking
like,
about that, me and the boys that I'm sorry to cut you off. No, go ahead.
no, no. Go ahead.
No, it's
I
just
want to.
we had this really funny experience where we were talking about like what is that smell in my
Because you
car,
have boys.
right?
Methane.
But it wasn't the voice. So we were like, what is that smell? We couldn't figure it out. Well, he realized that he left his lunch under the seat and it had
Oh,
broccoli in it. You
oh,
know
that's
how
the
broccoli
worst.
smells.
I
You know
like broccoli and
how broccoli.
bananas in it. That's the only way it could be worse.
Man.
So it was in there for days, and we were just like,
You like freeze frame my genuine reaction to that on the replay.
I know mine
Nasty.
too, like we did with like Kate did with the girl, the meme. That was so funny.
Yeah,
I love that video.
that was funny.
Yeah.
We had this kid in grade school that moved
Oh.
and it just reeked in the hallway. It was like horrible. And inside of his desk, there was an egg. He had collected an egg and it was there for a long time. And nobody could figure out what the smell was, and it just permeated the whole room. And
Yeah.
then
That's
when we
hard.
opened it up, it was just, and the egg cracked. It was awful. But yeah,
Oh
it can
no.
be, energy can be just like rotten something.
Hmm.
And people can induce this smell. Isn't that funny? It's one of the senses, but it's, yeah. it's more associated with taste, right? Or
Mhm.
here's my this is Peaches.
Oh,
Hi, Peaches.
he's
She's
so
so sweet.
sweet.
Hi. Yeah. She's probably hiding from the kitten. They're all being this cat like jumps on all of the other cats and we're not sure why, but we think it's just plain fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, this one doesn't have a tail, so she's
Yeah.
not as jumped on as much. But yeah, just that energy of she's so sweet.
My mind
The
is going to
energy
like
that
that cat breath is gonna stink.
You
Because we
this
have the
cat
dog, and the girls have learned that when the dog licks you, it doesn't smell bad, but when the cat licks you, you gotta wash your arm after.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, she doesn't stink.
Wow. Go
Oh.
kitty.
I know.
Oh, she's just purring. Yeah. I love this talk about energy because it's so
Yeah.
important for people to understand that we're energetic beings.
Mhm.
Something just happened, and I wanted to. Oh, it was so cool. So, Kay, when you had the water falling this weekend, it was coming out of a light fixture, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, and you just reminded me. So that this whole time, I thought that that was a drawing that you had done really cool shading on in these little boxes, and then you moved it, and I discovered
What was
it's
it?
paper on top of your paper. I
Oh,
thought those
so
were all squares that you had colored. Yeah, it's paper on top of the paper.
well
So
yeah,
yeah,
there's
that's like the coolest moment. And I bet I bet you had that moment. Hey, kitty, licking the camera. I bet you had that moment with the water where like it's so fun to get those moments when our senses don't know immediately what it is.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's surreal.
It's so fun where you're like,
That's
what?
why I called it an illusion.
Yeah.
Like and it's this whole life is an illusion. I mean,
Mhm.
the what we've all been talking about, like it's an illusion. We don't control other people's emotions, they control their emotions. We introduce our wave of energy and they receive it or embody it or whatever, but it's all an illusion. I mean, it's like it's just an illusion, right? Here you go,
Yeah.
an illusion.
I thought you had done like all these like little. It almost reminded me of like a 1980, like what is that? The Aha music video from the 80s
Oh
where it's like
yeah.
shaded. That's what I
Yep.
thought it was, and then you
It
picked it
did look
up.
like that.
No,
Yeah.
every piece of paper has a remnant at the top of my tablet, so I was just
Mm.
getting rid of all my remnants. But
Yeah.
it's funny. It's like the aha, I think. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So like normally I don't draw waves upon waves upon waves, but yeah, today I drew waves
I
upon
can't
waves
wait
upon
to
waves.
see today's art.
Isn't it funny that the band was called Aha? Like,
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Now they have a filter. You can make that video
I
Mhm.
yourself.
saw.
You
Yeah.
can step into a
That's
drawing
cool.
of whatever you're filming. Yeah.
There's
So,
go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. Are you? Oh, well, I was just gonna say, there was one more thing. So you finish what you're gonna say, and then we can quickly end it with the other
Well, I
thing.
made that face because I don't remember what it is. Oh, so um, I mumbled as a kid,
Uh-huh.
and I probably still mumble now. People tell me. My mom used to say like enunciate because that was her doing her best to tell me, and it never made sense that I was mumbling because in my head I could hear myself so clearly.
Mhm.
Right?
That sounds like
I
me
didn't
with my oldest.
I didn't know there was a problem.
Mhm.
And so with my daughter does that sometimes too, and so we figured
Mhm.
out how to we say all the sounds, and then she
Yeah.
slows down. But it created a lot of joy for me because people would mishear me all the time, and what it was like my game. So I'm discovering that it was a feedback for me to keep doing it because they would say what they thought I said, and it was
Oh, that's
completely
funny.
wrong, and I found it hilarious because
Oh,
I
it was like
love those
random.
moments.
And
Those are the best. I love those moments so much.
yeah,
I love those because they're so comedic.
they're always funny. They're always
Mhm.
funny, and I don't know where I was going with that. It brought me a lot of joy. to be
Really?
misheard. And isn't that funny? It brought me a lot of joy to not be seen as I truly was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of the comic dance of this life. And
To be
Mhm.
misunderstood.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and that even goes to when I wore boys' clothes in elementary school, and I've said before that it would make me laugh when people misgendered me because I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Oh my goodness.
you dodo.
Right.
Clearly, I'm a girl.
Yeah.
And then my one of my kids when she was little. So this is the last thing I'll say, and then I know you got something. But it goes along this speech thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ladies know this. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
So speech sounds to us in English are well defined because we've used English for many, many years.
Mhm.
But babies and infants, when they're developing the speech sound categories for a language,
Mhm.
they have more sensitivity because a child can be born prepared to speak any language in the world. So
Mhm.
they're born prepared to learn how to map the nuances of any language.
Yeah.
So they are almost too specific. Like taking to the extreme, if they didn't grow out of this, a child might think that when I say blueberry, it's a different word than when my husband says blueberry because down at the acoustic level they're very different. Okay,
Mhm.
so infants go through a phase where they're more specific, which is why you get a little kid that says, "Mom, say blah blah blah," and then mom says
Yeah.
blah blah blah, and the kid says, "No, I said blah blah blah," and the mom goes, "I said blah blah blah," and it's because
Yeah.
the mom didn't say it at the acoustic precision that the child can hear the differences, that the mom literally can't hear the differences because her language acoustics are solidified.
Mm.
So when my youngest, or when one of my kids was young, she would do that,
Yeah.
and she intentionally liked hearing us say things that were not the language.
Mm.
So she would say
I
a
wonder
non.
who she got it from.
So she would say a word and it would be a non-word, right? So it would be
Yeah.
like fleaboo.
Uh-huh.
And then we were trying to understand it because she'd use it like in a sentence like it was a real word. And we're like, what are you saying? Are you saying fleaboo? And then she would just start laughing whenever we repeated the
Oh,
word that wasn't a word.
yeah. She
And
knew what
yeah.
she
That's
was
cute.
doing, huh?
Yeah. So just to tie it all back to like the fun of language and how language is ridiculous and like
Yeah.
funny at its face, as Kay said, because it's like it was created to create distance. And that's in the Bible too,
Mhm.
right? That
It
you're
is.
not all going to speak one language. We're going to create distance between you through language.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's why you should all learn another language. Learn as many languages as you can. It's a fallacy to think you can't learn languages at a certain age. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's not as simple, but yeah, learn another language. There's nothing better than going somewhere and speaking another language and saying everything completely wrong and they're still understanding.
Mm.
And then kids, yeah, being able to say sketty or espe whatever, saying the words that aren't
Mlick.
even
My kid said mlick for milk. And again, my husband and I are trained in linguistics. So we're like, ML doesn't even occur in English, that combination together.
Yeah.
Mlick. But it was about the mechanics of the mouth moving.
yeah.
Mlick, it goes from closed to open versus milk, which is a weird when you think about the ilk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Milk. That's a
Wow, yeah.
weird
Different.
pattern. So she'd say mlick for like a
Yeah,
year.
because that's how the way the mouth learn or the way that your mouth progresses in muscular how children can progress in using words starts from that's why dad is
Yeah.
first because it's easier
It's
and
first.
mama is difficult because it's labial and
Yeah.
it's yeah. So kids aren't so she said that early on. Look.
You made
Wow.
I had a joke with my kids. I told them that labia means lip.
Oh,
Cause like ma is a bilabial stop because you use both lips.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then my 3-year-old said, "Hey mom, I like your labia." I said, "Don't say that. That's creepy."
Oh man. Yeah.
It's a linguistics term, so it is
Yeah.
real. It's just a
Yeah.
part. There's I mean, it's like saying sphincter. Your mouth is a sphincter. Every yeah, humans are funny. We're funny with language.
Yeah.
What's the
Wow.
last question?
Yeah.
So the last one is about energy, really, because, well, when you guys were asking or talking, when we were speaking about energy and, how our energy, it just kind of like covers everything around us. Unless, of
Yeah.
course, someone comes along with something more strong in the vibration. But anyways, the last question was, and it wasn't so much a question, it's pretty much like what I put in the chat, where the girl said that she wanted to start listening to these on her way to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was going to pose the suggestion, rather, that we come up with things that would be really good for people who want to listen to our videos when they're falling asleep, meaning really affecting or targeting the subconscious in a way that's going to be beneficial for them,
Hmm.
for our listeners, and even
Subliminal
ourselves.
messages.
Subliminal messages,
Subliminal.
things that would be helpful. And even if it isn't, it doesn't have to be something subliminal.
Right.
If we wanted to, we could, but just something that we know that would be safe.
Maybe she's picking up on our intentions, because our intentions
Yeah,
are that these are healing. I mean, maybe
she
we can all share what our intentions are.
she's definitely picking up on that. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, intentions, sharing intentions would be good. Um, Also picking topics like a lot of YouTubers do, that um and not to, of course, we're not trying to turn this into like a guided meditation or nature sounds or anything like that. But if we can pick topics that we know, at least for like the first 15 minutes or the latter half of our video, something that would help shape what they're trying to create, our viewers as a whole. We generally have, a certain type of audience. So something that would help them create what they're trying to create in their world, something stable, something spiritual, something loving.
Yeah. Aren't our topics typically relationships and self-love and self-care? And
Mhm.
I mean, this one was definitely
Mhm.
traversing the the rough landscape of the scalar wave zero line, where you're going to choose to be the mountain or the valley.
Yeah. That was so good. That's gonna make a really good clip. That and the thing that you were talking about too, choosing rather than reacting.
Reacting. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I
And we
think
love
that
questions. Questions
Mhm.
help guide us on what they want.
Yeah, I think it's very helpful. I'll definitely aim to get more for each Sunday that we have from here on out. I just feel so relaxed after this call,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Yeah, I'm ready to just kind of like take some time to meditate in the BBs. And yeah. And AJ is grounding us.
She's doing something.
Yeah. It's grounding me. I can feel it.
Sending love. Loving.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah. And I think that that would just, really, I think it would give the people, because you guys were reminding me of what our purpose is when it comes to, like, if we're trying to collect money or anything like that, like that's not who we are, even though we have that arrangement. But our purpose is to serve people, and we're looking for those who need what we have to offer. So
Mhm.
when we have that intention, when we set that intention and we think about that when we're on here, it draws those who need the message. And
Mhm.
I would love for our message to be exactly what they're looking for in that moment, and setting the
Mhm.
intention that we're able to channel like we did today.
And whatever it is that they need in that moment, that we can provide that. If we're their source, hopefully that's what they're getting, is what they need in that moment.
July,
Yeah.
you look like Oprah right now.
Do I?
And I know that has big meaning for you.
Yeah, it does. So many things that I've been thinking about these past few days, you ladies. Oh my gosh. I was going to say you guys. I got to stop saying guys.
You people.
You people.
I'm so used to saying you guys. Even the cat and the kitten, I think they provided what a lot of our viewers needed today.
Yes, she's happy.
Yeah.
They're all happy. Yep.
Yeah.
They are self-serving though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we've reached our time because it's now 12:25 here.
Okay.
So
In a couple weeks,
yeah.
I would like to put this on the calendar for our viewers and also for us.
Hmm.
On Sunday, October 16th, I would
Okay.
like to plan for an hour long.
Okay. That sounds good. We can
Thank
do that for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's funny how we inched our way up to 2 hours.
It just feels right.
Hmm. It does.
1 hour felt rushed. Like when we thought it was going to be an hour, I felt like I was controlling. Like,
Yeah.
come on, guys, get the good
Yeah.
stuff out. We got to end it.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, it feels good now. So, but all right, we're gonna have some good clips from this one, and thank you to everybody who supported our. Are we calling this a show now?
Yeah, I think that's what it needs. Is if we want it to be a show, we got to call it a show.
You gotta call it a show. Thank you for supporting our show with GI, the GI Playground. So we look
Yeah.
forward to seeing everyone next week. Join us, and please submit any questions or suggestions. You can do it here in the comment section, or however you want to reach us is fine.
Yeah, you
All
can
right.
Mhm.
send us personal messages if there are questions that you would like to ask privately. And as July did today, they get asked without the person's name unless you want it asked with credit,
Mm-hmm.
so that it can be a personal question publicly answered.
And I'm gonna put you ladies the you'll be able to find their channels in the chat as well.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do that
Maybe
on my
their
clip.
emails. Maybe their something.
Yeah,
I
you can
know,
do
right?
email.
When you said
The
personal message, you were talking about people who already have our.
Oh, right. So if you could share my Instagram tag on the
Gotcha.
description for this,
So
that would be
DM.
good.
Okay.
Yeah, DMs are good.
All right.
Yeah, I think
Cool.
DMs and Instagram are good for me.
They can
Okay.
send emails too, but it just is
Yeah.
a slower turnaround time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
think the DMs are better.
yep.
I think
I think
let's just go with that. We'll go with the
okay.
Instagram tags then, and
Okay.
everybody can do that.
Yeah.
All right, ladies. Thank you so much for showing
Thank
up
you. Love
in
Thank
you.
every way.
you. Love you.
I
Bye.
love you. Bye.